Good morning, all. Good now live on Facebook and on YouTube. So thank you all for joining us for another session. Of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. There we go. Okay, so thank you all for logging on and for sharing and for greetings in the chat. Thank you all for giving your time this morning for some learning together. That's what it's about, coming together for some learning. So whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube, we welcome you to this session. We'll just give it a few minutes for people to log on. Please do share your comments as you're logging in. Boker Tov, Boker Tov. I see if people are logging in as we speak, so welcome. Okay, so let me welcome you all here personally. Those of you that have commented already. Morning, Shirley Feldman, Tracy Mindel, Boker Tov, Larry Cohen, thank you. And Hack, Ruth Kaplan, Sherilyn Diamond, Arnold Orkin, Linda and Hamid Drew. Thank you, Hilly Lipworth, Norman Stein, Boker Tov, Daryl Epstein. Good to have you online with us. Norman, okay, great. And it's all on Facebook. Thanks for your greetings there. And for you, those of you on YouTube, hi, Michael Stein, good morning. And for those on your YouTube, Shelley Smith, Vega Sager, Avra Walpert, Stan Areline Braz, David Seif, Boker Tov, Stephen Herr. And yes, we'll learn in memory of your mum, Esther Bat Moshe, Lionel Rubin, Manfred and Ruth Kalmek. Good to see you both. Dawn Orlovitz, fantastic. So we have a beautiful crowd here. 35 viewers online now between Facebook and YouTube. So good to see you all here. I love the greetings that are taking place. Everyone's greeting each other. Fantastic. Mark and Dawn Orlovitz online today. That's fantastic. We're just going to give this a few more moments while people are logging on before we get going for today's discussion. So just be patient with me for a moment. Good morning, Trevor Gerson. Good to see you online. Thanks for joining. Hi, Robert Levy and Maureen, I assume. Good to have you all here. We dedicate today's learning to a refuah shalema, to two close friends, Rafael Shmuel ben Itamira, as well as Liron ben Sarit. And Stephen Herr asked us to dedicate this to his mother, Le'iloi Nishmat, in memory of her neshama, Esther Bat Moshe. Sherilyn Diamond, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Morning, Philip Gordon, Hilly Lipworth, Daryl Emperler. Oh, you're welcoming. Okay, good to see. Thank you. All right, guys, let's get going here. Thank God, nice turnout. Shalom Triga, good morning. So we find ourselves currently in the 3 weeks We just had the fast of the 17th of Tammuz on Thursday, and now we're headed towards Tisha B'Av. 3 weeks later, in 3 weeks' time, the fast that commemorates the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Hi, Helen Feinstein. Thanks for joining. The rabbis teach us that there are two names that are used for the tribes of Israel. One is the name of Shevet, and one is the name of Mate. Good morning, Larry. Good morning, D. Turner from Cape Town. Thank you. So there's two names we have. We have a name. Hi, Jared Abelson. Boker Tov. Fantastic. There's about 45 people online right this morning. It must be Sunday morning, a better time for the rest of the community. Good to have you all here. Thank you for making time for this. Two names. We're highlighting two names. They represent the Jewish community, the tribes of Israel. One is a Shevet and one is a Mate. This week's parasha, which we're going to lay in this coming Shabbos, we use the word matot. These are the tribes of. But sometimes we use the word shvatim or shevet. So sometimes they're called matot and sometimes they're called shvatim. What is the difference between them? What's interesting is that both refer to branches from a tree. It's not a coincidence because God is considered our tree. He nourishes us, He sustains us, He gives us, He provides for us. That's what a tree does. God is the source of vitality. Chiyus, energy comes to us through the branches of God's tree. That's why He calls the tribes the Mate, Matot, or He calls the tribes Shvatim, because we're compared to a Shevet, we're compared to a Mate. But is there a difference between these two? Are these just two random names, or do these names actually have something deeper to them? That would be the question. Maybe there's something deeper to these names of Shevet and Mate. So let me share with you what the commentaries explain. There's a major difference between these two. The Shevet represents a branch that is either connected to the tree or freshly cut off that tree. And what that means is that the Shevet actually still has the moisture of the tree flowing through it. The moisture of the tree, the branch is still connected. It's part of the tree. It's fresh. It's alive. That's what a Shevet represents. The Mate is very different. A Mate represents a staff, a stick, as being long disconnected from the tree. It's already dried up. Hi, Shalom Triga. Marlene Scher, good morning. It's already dried up a long time ago. It's long detached. Had it not been wood, we would not have seen the direct contact or link between the staff and the tree. That's what the Mate represents. Moshe Rabbeinu, in fact, held a Mate in his hand. That Mate is a dried up stick off that tree. The Shevet is fresh. If you recall the story that we learned about a few weeks back, in the story of Korach, where Korach was a rabble rouser, he was causing trouble for Moshe and Aaron and the Jewish people. What happened there? Each of the tribes prepared their staff. Each of the tribes prepared their mateh. They brought their mateh there in front of the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. And miraculously, we know what happened. Miraculously, the mateh of Aaron started growing almonds on it. There was a double miracle there. Number one is how fast the almonds grew. They grew overnight. But number two is this was a dried up stick that could never possibly grow fruit on it. And yet the dried up stick of Moshe and of Aaron actually grew almonds. From a dried up stick. And yet in a way, these two terminologies reflect two sorts of connection that we have to our Judaism. We have different phases in our lives as a tribes, as a nation, and as individuals. Sometimes we have a relationship that's represented by the shevet, the word shevet. And sometimes we have a relationship that's represented by the word mateh. And I'll explain that in just a moment. Before I do that, I want to welcome you all on here for our daily session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. If you're just logging on, thank you for sharing your greetings. Put your greetings in the comments. We'd love to welcome you personally. If you have any questions, feel free to post them on the group, on the chat, either on Facebook or on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you and engage with you personally. So, there are moments in our lives when we feel connected to the source of life. We feel connected to godliness, to spirituality, to Torah. Like, for example, during the times of the temple. During the times of the temple, we felt close to God. We feel close to God in the times of the temple. Godliness is felt coming to the Beit HaMikdash for services and sacrifices and Kohanim and Leviim. It's beautiful. So it's like the shevet. What's the shevet? The shevet is the stick, is the branch that's fresh and connected to the tree. And sometimes we have moments in our history that we feel like a mateh. And the mateh is distant. It's far. It's dry. We feel uninspired, disconnected, far from God. And that's the mateh. I was once sitting in Jerusalem. It was Friday night. In fact, it was the first Jerusalem marathon. And Sidnam, a group of us traveled to Israel in honor of the marathon. Good morning, Dennis Solomons. Some people on the group ran 42 kilometers, and some people on the group ran 4.2 kilometers. I won't tell you who ran the 4.2 and who ran the 42. I'll let you figure that one out yourself. But really, to me, it wasn't so much the marathon that I was there for. It was the highlight of being Shabbos in Yerushalayim with close friends of the shul. Together we went. It was an unbelievable weekend. This is about 10 years ago now. And we spent Friday night, we had a Shabbos dinner in the old city, a few steps away from the Kotel. It was unbelievable. And at this dinner, I was describing Yerushalayim of old to Yerushalayim of present. And I mentioned that we're currently in exile. We don't have the Beit HaMikdash. And I mentioned Jerusalem at the times of the temple and Jerusalem in current times. And someone sitting at that dinner got up and he started yelling and shouting, "How could you say that we're living in exile? We have the bracha and the opportunity of sitting in Yerushalayim on Shabbos Friday night dinner. We've got sovereignty and control over Jerusalem. We're living in messianic times. How could you say we're living in exile?" So I paused and I waited till he finished. And I said, "Are we blessed to be sitting in Yerushalayim on Friday night?" Absolutely. I wouldn't be there if it wasn't a blessing. Are we blessed to have sovereignty of Yerushalayim? Absolutely, we're blessed to have sovereignty of Yerushalayim. But are we living in messianic times? Not quite. Is Yerushalayim the same as it was in the times of the temple? Not quite. Do we see Kohanim and Levim offering sacrifices? No. Do we see on top of Temple Mount the Holy of Holies? I don't think so. And so let's get our facts right. We are blessed to have Yerushalayim. We are blessed to celebrate Shabbos and the Kotel and Friday night dinner in Yerushalayim. But we're nowhere near yet where we should be. And that we're going to daven for and pray for. And so I use that because we're describing, we have Shevet moments, we have Matter moments. The Shevet moment is a moment that we feel that there's holiness and there's spiritual and there's godliness in the temple. And then there's Matter moments when it feels like a little bit dry and distant. Good morning, Charmaine. And we don't have the temple, and we don't have sacrifices, and we don't have the Beit HaMikdash. Yes, we're blessed, but it's still not the same. In a way, we feel detached from the source of life. We feel dry. That's what the Matter represents. And it's not a coincidence that we laying this parasha, this story, we laying in the weeks of the 3 weeks. Because these are the 3 weeks we mourn the destruction of the temple. These are the 3 weeks when we don't have the Beit HaMikdash. These are the 3 weeks when we're lacking our source of vitality, and we're remembering that and focusing on that. And so the parasha this week is Matot, because it makes sense. It's now a Matter. The Jewish people are compared to a Matter during the 3 weeks. We're compared to a dried up staff, and we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, the temple for us. And what needs to be our focus? Our focus needs to be to transform the Matter and make the Matter alive again. To take the dried up stick, the dried up staff, and make the dried up staff grow again. Because in fact, when is the bigger test for the Jewish people? When's the bigger test? The Nisayon. When does God see our commitment more? Is it during a time of the Shevet, of the staff? Sorry, is it during the time of the Shevet, of the branch on the tree? Or is it during the time of a Matter when we're compared to a dried up staff? When's it more of a test for the Jewish people? When do the Jewish people show a better commitment, a higher level of commitment? And I think you know the answer. The Jewish people show more commitment and more dedication and stand up to their values and their principles and their connection to God when things are dry. If we're connected to God when things are fresh, when there's a Beit HaMikdash, okay, that's good, but not as good as someone who is detached in a way. Compared to a Matter, compared to a staff, we're full detached and distant. And yet we're connected to God. That's the greater sign of commitment. Not when you're sitting in Yerushalayim. You know, so many people go to Israel on gap years, seminary years, yeshivot years, And when they go to Israel, even for a holiday, for a vacation, and they go there in Israel and suddenly we feel lifted. I'm not talking about when we walk down the boardwalk of Tel Aviv Beach. I don't know how inspiring that is. But when we go to Yerushalayim and we go to other places which are inspiring and uplifting, we feel good. We put on our yarmulkes so often in Yerushalayim. We wear our tzitzit proudly. So many youngsters who come back from seminary and yeshivot come back proud about their Judaism, about their observance. We feel confident and proud and connected. It's fantastic. The biggest question is what happens when you go back home to the diaspora, to Chutz La'aretz. You're no longer living in Israel. You don't feel that boost of energy, that boost of spirituality, that boost of inspiration. Now you're back at home. It's further away. It's a dried up staff in a way, relatively speaking. Now the question is, how committed are you? How connected are you? How devoted? The biggest sign of commitment is when we compare to a mate. And that's why God put us into exile. God said, I want to see how you are in exile, how you are without a temple, how you are in the diaspora, how you are when you compare to a matot, to the dried up staff. Now let's see your commitment. And that's got to be our focus in these weeks of the 3 weeks. Our focus during these weeks needs to be one of transforming our environment, taking a dried up staff and making it grow almonds again, just like Aaron's staff. In fact, the Haftarah of yesterday, I don't know if you followed the Haftarah yesterday. Obviously, it wasn't in shul, but maybe at home you read through the Haftarah. The Haftarah was a prophecy of Jeremiah, of Yirmiyahu, where Jeremiah sees a mate. And what's happening to the mat? It's not. He calls it there a makel, which is also another term for a stick. What happens to the makel? It's flourishing almonds again. This concept of taking a dried up staff, a dried up stick, and growing almonds out of it. That's the most beautiful concept. That even though you're not directly connected, even though it's been so far away from the tree, you're so far away from the tree, and you're still connected, that's a sign of inspiration. Just a few weeks ago, we commemorated the 26th yahrzeit of the Rebbe. I spoke about this in our daily morning sessions around the few days of his yahrzeit. Hi, good morning to the Bloch family. Good to have you online with us. Thank you. If any of you are just logging on, please do share your greetings and your comments. I'd like to know you're with us, so it would be nice to see who's online. So just put something in the comments and we'd love to welcome you personally. Thank you. 26 years ago was the Rebbe's passing in 1994. I spoke about this briefly a few weeks ago when it was his yahrzeit. Many naysayers and critics said that when the Rebbe died, that was the end of his empire, his dynasty, his network, brand. What's going to happen with all the shluchim around the world and the Chabad houses and the infrastructure they had set up? It's all going to fall apart. Because if there's no general on top, then his infrastructure is going to fall away. You know what's interesting? Not only did it not crumble, but it actually grew. There's more shluchim in the world today that went out to their posts and their communities post the Rebbe's passing than there were shluchim who went out on shlichut to their communities before the Rebbe's passing. It's mind-boggling. In fact, at the Kinus HaShluchim, where they have the gathering once a year, they ask for people to stand. And so they do a standing ovation. Anyone that went on shlichut to their communities in the 1960s, there aren't many of them, it's fewer in number, they stand up. And those who went on shlichut in the 1970s, few more get up. 80s, few more get up. Those who went on shlichut to their communities pre-1994, they stand up. The hall is mainly sitting at that point in time. Can you imagine? Those who went to their posts before Gimel Tammuz, 3rd of Tammuz, 1994, are only a small percentage. The majority are still sitting. And then the master of ceremonies, the MC, says, and anybody that went to their posts, to their communities, to do community work and follow the will and desire of the Rebbe, to spread Yiddishkeit and Judaism to the whole world, and they went out post 1994 after his passing, please stand up. And you know what happens? The entire room just gets up. It's unbelievable. And I see this as the same description of the Shevet and the Mateh. You've got people that stood by the Rebbe's table for years and years. They studied the Rebbe's Torah. They stood by his table. They were at his Farbrengens. They heard his inspiration. They received his advice. They received his dollars. They're like a shevet, like a branch that's still connected to the tree in a way, especially when they went out, for sure. When they went out to their posts, it was by direct instruction, by direct advice that the Rebbe had given them. And then you have a generation that grew up a little bit distant from that after his passing, since 1994. And they're compared to a mateh. The mateh is dry. The connection is not so clear. The vitality, the energy is not moist. It's not fresh. And what's the job? The job is to take the mateh, take a generation, a community, a people, a group of students, and take them in the form of mateh and transform them. Start growing almonds, fruits, flowers out of those dried up sticks. Just like the staff of Aharon grew almonds, just like the stick of Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, in the prophets of the Haftarah grew flowers and almonds, so too, we got to do the same. That's the way we're going to welcome in Mashiach. That's the way we're going to change the world. That's the way we're going to bring back the third base of Mikdash. We can't become the fresh connection unless we put in the work. And so our focus during these 3 weeks is exactly this. Our focus during these 3 weeks, ways of rejuvenating, of reconnecting, of inspiring ourselves, that although we may be distant, although we call them mateh, although we have obstacles and hurdles along the way, nonetheless, we are strong and we are focused and we are transforming ourselves and our communities. And how relevant is this message to today's times we live in right now? Right now, we're in lockdown, almost 4 months of it. I think 16 weeks of Shabbos at home. We're not currently at the shul. Obviously, we want to return to the shul. We're not at the shul in a way of a shevet, that's a branch connected to the tree. We're distant. We're at home, far away from our shuls during the corona lockdown. And yet, our job is to connect. And so we try Zoom, and we try Facebook, and we try YouTube, and we try whatever mechanism possible. We're not going to give in, even though we're far, even though we're detached, even though we're in lockdown. We're not going to give up, and we're going to try and find ways of connecting, so that the dried up branch, so that lockdown itself can be inspiring, so that lockdown itself can be uplifting, so that lockdown itself can leave us with important messages that are so vital and critical for our journey of life. And that's what we do here on a daily basis. We try and inspire each other and connect with each other and learn together, so that our environment that seems to be a mateh, seems to be a detached staff, still remains connected to the source of life, to the source of Torah and God. And please God, our mateh, our staff, our lockdown will start growing flowers and almonds and produce beautiful things for our character traits, for our qualities, for our family's character traits, for our community's character traits and qualities, so that we should see the silver lining and the benefits that are coming from this difficult and challenging circumstances. Thank you all for being online with us once again. for another session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. I welcome you to join us every day at 10:30 this week for a half an hour session on Facebook or YouTube Live. In the meantime, keep safe, keep sane, and keep spiritual. And have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you.